So factors such as spore size, the location of the moss, so we have this cute little orthotrichum here, obviously on the branch of a tree. So if you're higher up in the atmosphere, even a foot up or 5 feet up, your spores are going to be able to catch an air current a little bit easier. And then major weather events like windstorms or hurricanes or even firestorms that can suck things up into the atmosphere and get them further away from home. So once the spores are out there, then they need to land in an appropriate habitat. We think that mosses really are more habitat limited than spore dispersal limited, and that spore needs to land on a specific substrate. Lots of mosses have specific things that they're looking for. Some only grow on wood, some only grow on rock, some only grow in acidic soil. So they need to find that appropriate habitat before they can grow and establish. Okay, so we live in the Okanagan, right? We love the Okanagan, it's so beautiful. So here's this pictures, because Justin has takes amazing pictures of our beautiful valley. And we think about different habitats, and these spores are out there, they're looking for their habitats, and we have a lot of habitat available here in the Okanagan. We start down here in the sagebrush, and we get up, further into kind of grassland and this low forest, ponderosa pine, Douglas fir type of forest with rocks. We have this type of dry forest. You look up into the hills, you see more of a mixed conifer, these beautiful larch trees here by Concanelli Lake. You get up into subalpine meadows, you're getting more moisture, you're getting subalpine fir trees. All these sort of landscape scale types of habitats is very diverse here. It's, I think, one of the reasons we love living here, right? It's just beautiful, and it creates a lot of habitat for mosses. So if you're hiking along in a ponderosa pine forest, hiking along, you're going through the upland, you're seeing the trees, and you cross a creek. Well, that creek is going to have different types of mosses in it than the upland did. And then you keep hiking on your trail and you look over and there's a cliff. And the cliff is going to have different mosses growing on it. So you have these kind of macro habitats. They're in between landscape, they're bigger than a rock. They're kind of this middle ground of type habitat scale. We've also called them mesohabitats. That was a part of my master's study. So like rivers and streams, lakes and ponds, uplands, cliffs, talus slopes, all those are kind of landscape features that change the community of mosses that will grow there. And then within that macro habitat, if you're along a stream, if you're in an upland forest, you have different features at that micro scale. You might have some snags or some stumps or some logs. All of those will have different species on them. Mineral soil, humus, litter, boulders, rock outcrops, tree bark and tree branches might have different species on them. If you're along a stream, are you wet all the time? Are you within the spray zone? Are you just near the stream where you're humid all the time? All of these are different microhabitats within your macro habitat, within your forest type on your landscape. You can see where this is going. There's lots of different levels. I'm going to even get down this a little bit finer. There's micro habitats. There's no word for it. But if you look at this beautiful mossy log, the top is going to be drier than the bottom. Gravity pulls that water down and the soil keeps the bottom more moist. So down here at the bottom, you're going to have all these leafy liverworts that need constant moisture. And then you see this kind of more golden, that'll be a moss growing there. And then on top, you probably have more cushiony type mosses that dry out. So within your microhabitat, you have microhabitats. This log is providing all sorts of different types of habitat because mosses are so small they can have their own scales that we don't even have words for. So they grow a lot of places, they're really cool, But how are they important? So right now we're going to talk about how they're important ecologically, like in the environment, how they're important. So one of their important things is part of our beautiful song is that they hold that soil in place, right? So here's a Vixia species growing on some exposed soil, probably along a river or the edge of a pond. It's kind of a wet species. And you can see how if water came over this, it wouldn't be as likely to slough off because we have this beautiful liverwort growing on it, keeping it in place. This is Funaria hygrometrica. It's a pretty common moss, especially if you've ever looked in a fire pit where the charcoal's in there and you have some mosses and liverwort's growing. Funaria hygrometrica is going to be there. And so it colonizes that exposed ground and starts to stabilize it. This cutie over here is on a rock. These are the little cushions that you see growing on the rocks around here. So as that establishes and it keeps growing, it catches dirt and litter and grows up through it and becomes bigger and catches dirt and litter. And so this is the way that you get soil formation as these things grow up, and then your bedrock is covered with moss. There's more soil. You start getting some vascular plants coming in and establishing in those areas. So another important, Julie, you're on. Another important thing about mosses is that they are very good at water regulation. So this is the star moss we talked about in our song, Procula ruralis, or we don't even, it's just music. But they hydrate really quickly. So this is kind of a little bit dorky, but look at this. This is so cool. One drop of water there at the very base of that moss, and it's, I don't know, it's kind of doing a little bit. It doesn't look very exciting. Gosh, why is she showing this? This is so boring. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Oh, wait, something's happening. Oh, goodness. It's starting to rise. Look at that, it's hydrating. Isn't that awesome? So like I said earlier, these mosses can dry out completely. And this is one of the quickest hydrators, but they hydrate quickly. And so they're absorbing that water that comes in that's just precious, and they hold it for a long time too, so then they can become a supply of water for other organisms as well. Good, thanks. So hopefully we won't get some news commentary. There. So, water, so they absorb water quickly and they hold water. They don't want to give it up because it's precious to them in their life cycle. So this is the queen of all water holders is the sphagnum species. This is Sphagnum warnstorfii, which we have around in our peatlands here. It gets this beautiful reddish color to it. So you see all these little spaces, like it'll hold water on the outside, it holds water on the inside, it just doesn't want to let it go. These are the cells. If you take one of these little leaves off, like there's millions of little leaves, well, not millions, but lots of them on one of these stems, and you put that on a slide and put it under a compound microscope. This right here I'm outlining is a cell. This white part in here is all one cell. It's the water holding cell. These crossbars are kind of fibrils. They're just thickenings of the cell wall that help it from bursting, right? But they can make all sorts of cool patterns, and that's how you identify these really hard things to identify. So this whole thing just holds water, and these cells out here are the green things that help keep it alive and give it its sugar. So a sphagnum can hold 20 times its weight in water. And so these are really important even in commercial aspects. You think of all that peat moss. We'll get into that later, but peat moss you put in your garden because it helps hold the water in your soil, and this is why. So this is really important in the ecosystem, that you want that water holding capacity of these mosses so that things don't dry out as quickly, even along a stream bank or underneath a sagebrush. That star moss is going to hold that water longer and keep that water available for other organisms as well. So now we're going to kind of move into how mosses interact with the creepy crawly creatures, those animals. I guess we have to give a little credit to the animals in a plant talk, but it's pretty cool. So they can become shelter for microfauna. So if you are in this bed of Hypnum pratense and Capillium stellatum, this is in a wetland. If you're microscopic, this is your forest. This is where you live. This is your protection and your shelter. So these moss cushions and these mats become a forest for all sorts of these small creatures. So I found this information about this study that was done, Suzuki in 1971, on Mount Fuji. So they collected different substrates, tore it apart and looked for all the little microscopic organisms and counted them up. And mosses were the highest in diversity. They housed the most of these little creatures like rhizopods and gastrotrix and rotifers and nematodes. I don't even know what those are, but they're there. And the highest richness, the highest species diversity, had 77 species in one of these. I don't know how big the moss mats were, but 77 different species of these tiny little organisms within the moss mat. That's amazing. You think of your little forest, 1 acre forest plot, you might have 2 tree species. You might have 5 shrub species. If it's really diverse, you might have 20 vascular plants on the ground. You might have 40 different moss species, maybe not even that many. But if you have 77 species of these tiny little microscopic things, the richness of your site just tripled. It's amazing when you get down to this fine level of study that there's so much more out there than we really know about. So, create shelter for microfauna. As we get bigger, into bigger creatures, the moss becomes safe site, they're the habitat, they regulate moisture and temperature, they provide nesting materials and areas, they help creatures overwinter, camouflage and mimicry and food locations. So this is a poor little salamander. I just think he looks so forlorn.